estamos en un promedio que tenemos que seguir trabajando en el sector, en estos intercambios que han tenido hasta el día de hoy, pero les agradezco la invitación. Es un honor para mí estar presente hoy aquí. Le estaba diciendo a alguna de las mujeres que recién me presentaron que Uruguay está representado en esta oportunidad por muchas mujeres. Estoy como ministra de Nuestra Energía y Minería, también está la directora de Energía, Ariana Spinelli, está la presidenta de ANCAP, que es la empresa energética de combustible, sobre todo de petróleo en Uruguay. Tenemos a Silvina Caporale, que es una compañera del directorio, una directora de UTE, de la empresa eléctrica, y compañeras además técnicas, Magdalena y otra compañera más de UTE, así que bueno, vinimos como, ¿no?, a cumplir cuota del sector. Mi intención no es ser muy rápida, ser sintética, pero sí me parece que retomando actividades que hemos tenido desde marzo y en las que muchas de ustedes me han escuchado, reforzar ciertos ítems que me parecen importantes en estos eventos, como les decía, bien sintética. Lo primero, el otro día participábamos de un encuentro también con la Embajada de España en Uruguay y decíamos que el concepto de mujeres más productivas es algo que está demostrado, está sobre la mesa. Yo le diría que me parece que es un tema que está, ya lo pasamos, el repetir que cuando las mujeres participan en empresas son más eficientes, más productivas, más rentables. Primero no nos tiene que pesar decirlo, hay que decirlo, está medido. Y ese argumento, como les decía, ya está demostrado, no lo recojo yo en lo personal, ni Uruguay en particular, sino que hay datos de muchos organismos internacionales que así lo dicen. Lo que a mí me está pasando con estos intercambios es que me parece que corremos el riesgo de reducir la inclusión a una forma utilitaria del tema. Cuando decimos que somos más eficientes y demás, tenemos que decirlo porque es así, pero al mismo tiempo tenemos que tener el cuidado necesario de que no quede reducido a algo meramente utilitario. Como si las mujeres fueran un engranaje en un proceso o en una máquina de productividad. Entonces, me parece que primero poner en su justo término eso. En segundo lugar, la diversidad, y en este caso hablando de mujeres, en este sector, sobre todo está masculinizado históricamente, es mucho más que un cálculo de eficiencia también. Es capacidad de empresa, capacidad de sectores, de una sociedad incluso, que se anticipa al futuro y que es más resiliente, que resiste crisis desde otro lugar. Los equipos homogéneos son buenos porque pueden ser veloces, pero también es verdad que los heterogéneos, o los homogéneos en realidad para no perder el hilo conductor, también pueden ser más frágiles, porque se pierden miradas, se pierde esa diversidad de miradas. Entonces yo lo que creo es que los equipos diversos, por supuesto que con la integración de mujeres, son capaces de imaginar respuestas inesperadas o innovar donde no se había mirado en otro momento. Y por eso digo que no es solo que las mujeres podamos rendir o no más en determinados sectores, en determinada estrategia, sino que hacemos que el sector sea más resiliente y más creativo. Por otro lado, también me toca en la cartera en Uruguay, la cartera tiene 9 direcciones distintas, pero en el nombre está Industria, Energía y Minería. 3 sectores que se imaginarán que no cambian ni mueven la aguja lo que acabo de decir con respecto a energía, más en industria y en minería. Entonces, también es verdad que en este momento, como autoridades, las sociedades, y por suerte es así, y en la región de que hablar, la industria, el sector energético, el minero y todo lo que tiene que ver con la industria estratégica es observado por la ciudadanía. Y nos interpelan y nos evalúan desde el lugar donde juzgan a la sociedad en general, y nos preguntan qué producimos, cómo lo hacemos, con qué costos sociales y ambientales. Y en ese terreno, yo creo que en este caso agrego otro concepto a lo que vengo diciendo, y es que la inclusión y la diversidad es una condición de legitimidad. ¿Por qué? Porque cuando no tenemos diversidad, cuando no tenemos inclusión, Capaz que podemos ser rentables igual, pero tal vez por la sociedad o por ciertos grupos, en nuestro caso mayoritarios en muchas sociedades, puede estar percibido como decisiones ajenas a la sociedad o al grupo. Entonces quedamos rezagados frente a la sensibilidad de la ciudadanía. Sobre todo en muchos de nuestros países, en el caso de Uruguay también, donde las agendas de derechos también hay que seguir defendiéndolas como algo social y no solo de los sectores. Entonces la inclusión no solo mejora el balance, le da a la empresa la legitimidad social para existir, para operar, para crecer en sintonía con la comunidad en la que opera, en la que trabaja. Y por otro lado, muchas de ustedes deben tener esta formación que voy a nombrar ahora. Hablar de mujeres en industria, en sectores de energía, de minería y de innovación, tiene que ver hablar con mujeres en carreras de STEM. Ahora les agregaron la A, y por suerte también pusieron el arte en el medio de la sigla, ¿no? Pero en realidad implica hablar de mujeres que son científicas, trabajan en tecnología, son ingenieras, trabajan en matemática. Y cuando yo leía esto, pensaba, bueno, ¿qué hago yo como abogada? ¿Qué puedo aportar como militante de energía y minería? Y bueno, acá también tenemos un gran desafío, es una de las cuestiones por las cuales empecé a trabajar en este sector, que no me era natural en mi carrera, no me era natural como abogada, pero que también trae muchos desafíos que tienen que ver con marco regulatorio, que tienen que ver con integración regional, que es muchas de las discusiones que vamos a tener y los intercambios que vamos a tener en estos días. Por lo tanto, todas las mujeres con nuestras profesiones y con esta mirada, sabiendo que esta mirada es estratégica, donde cada una puede aportar con su formación, por supuesto que va a generar valor en este tipo de intercambios. Entonces, lo que les decía es que las cifras muestran una paradoja, que mientras la demanda de ingenieras, técnicas y científicas crece con la digitalización, con la innovación tecnológica, con la transición energética en muchos de nuestros países, la participación femenina en estos campos todavía nos sigue costando verla y nos sigue costando que seamos parte, les diría que promedialmente equitativo en grupos de intercambio técnicos, científicos. Entonces, lo que también tenemos que decir, como para ir cerrando, es que esto no es un tema de talento o de falta de talento. Es un problema de barreras de acceso, que también tenemos que defender en este sector. Estereotipos, faltas de referentes. El otro día en este intercambio con la Embajada de España decíamos, ¿por qué cuando nosotras pensamos dónde nos iniciamos y quiénes fueron nuestros mentores, no logramos discernir o pensar en una mujer que fue nuestra mentora, que fue la persona que nos abrió las barreras, armó redes de contención, no solo del punto de vista técnico, profesional, sino también emocional, de familia, social? Entonces,
discussing this, I would like to thank again for allowing me to participate as a minister. It's important for Uruguay, and of course having the delegation that we have, that's also important for my country, and it's a strategic condition for safety and energy sovereignty, and those are 2 points that we're discussing here in regional exchange. And so women are not a resource, and this is what I want to share with you. And so this is information that means, this is a part of strategic areas where truly there's value in the process, and this is a resource. And this is something that is available so that there's more use, profitability, more efficiency, productivity. We are the main characters in this transformation, and in the ministry we set the concept that that ministry is transforming, and so we had an event in Uruguay. We had a tool that is called Women That Transform, And of course, there's no refund, and we hope that this is not to be returned. And we have lots of women that are entrepreneuring in Uruguay. Some have an access barrier in terms of financing, and sometimes they're not risking because they need something. And the concept of transforming for us is a concept that is integrated in the nucleus of the industrial policy in Uruguay right now. And so, just very briefly to wrap up, don't see ourselves as people that contribute in efficiency, because we know that, but let's empower ourselves, because we are people with power. We are in strategic places, and I remember that in March 8th, Uruguay was said it's not only hard to access decision-making places, but also staying there. And that is something that we need to continue working on, because it's hard to be there, and once we're there, everything else is, we remember all the things that we have to take care of. So things that are very familiar for women. So as I was saying, when there's women in decision making, we are pushing all questions, and I'm convinced of this. So I know people are absolutely crazy when I keep talking about that. But what do we need on a daily basis, and what are the products that have their dialogue with sustainability? What innovation creates well-being, not only consumption? And these are things that we need to ask ourselves regardless of our sectors. So these are questions that we need to ask ourselves when we're talking about a future policy. So when we defend women's participation in these sectors, we're not saying that things have to be more profitable. We are talking about something even deeper. That means things are more fair, legal, and more human. And thanks to that, this sector will continue surviving. Thank you. Thank you once again to the Minister for her inspiring words. And now to continue, we'll go to the panel, where let me tell you that one of the panelists will speak in Portuguese in case someone wants to find their interpretation device. If not, we'll understand just Portuñol. And so I'll invite to the stage Francisca Valenzuela, Head of the Gender and Human Rights Ministry of Energy. And panelists, Lince Bayan Roca, Head of the Laboratory for Photovoltaic Research in the Institute for Science and Technology of the Materials of the University of Havana, Cuba. Karina Araujo, and the Head of the Department for Transition and Energy in the Ministry of Energy and Mines in Brazil. Also Diana Salazar, co-founder of G-Girls Latam. And also Florencia Balestro, specialist in energy in the World Bank.
Hola, hola. Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todos y todas.
Well, good afternoon.
Gracias por acompañarnos en este panel.
Thank you for joining us in this panel. I'd like to start and then share a bit of our panelists. I'd like to start telling you that Florencia Balestro, she works as a specialist in energy for countries in the South Cone and also in matters of gender for Latin America and the Caribbean. And she has a PhD in renewable energy and also financing of projects for energy. And I'd also like to tell you a little bit more about Karina Araujo. She is... We're going to speak Portuguese. I'm sorry, there's no Portuguese here in this room.
Atuando em inovação, parcerias internacionais, marco regulatório offshore, sistemas isolados de energia na Amazônia. Diana Salazar, ella es cofundadora y CEO de
Diana Salazar, she is the co-founder and of G-Girls Latam and in Latin America.
De niñas y jóvenes y mujeres en las áreas de
and she
ciencia,
works in
tecnología, ingeniería,
helping
artes,
women
matemáticas,
and
áreas
young
STEM,
women in the
y es
areas
reconocida
of
por el
the
impacto
STEM
relevante sus buenas
science,
prácticas de
STEM
desarrollo
area,
sostenible
and
en
she's
equidad de
acknowledged
género y
for
reducción
working
de las
in sustainable
desigualdades.
development and gender
La
equality and the
doctora
reduction in
Lilice
inequalities.
nos
Dr.
acompaña,
Lilice
Bayan Roca. Ella dirige el
Bayan Roca
laboratorio de fotovoltaica del
for
Instituto de
photovoltaic
Ciencia
in
y
the Institute
Tecnología
of
de
Science and
Materiales de la
Technology,
Facultad de Física de la
of
Universidad de
materials
La Habana.
in
Ella
physics
recibió su
in the
doctorado en el
University of Havana.
2008
She
en la misma
received her
universidad,
PhD in the
en
same
colaboración con la
university,
Universidad de Parma, Italia, y ha trabajado en materiales
and she has
avanzados
worked in
nanoestructurados
advanced
para
material
mejorar el rendimiento de
to
los dispositivos
improve the
fotovoltaicos, entre
photovoltaic
otras destacadas labores.
devices,
Para
among
iniciar,
other
me
things. So
gustaría
to
que
start,
comenzáramos contigo, Florencia.
I'd like for us
Sin
to
duda,
start
los
with you,
organismos
Florencia,
internacionales juegan
because
un rol muy importante
international
a nivel de
organizations
estándares
have a really important
internacionales.
role in terms
Este
of
posicionamiento de
international
estándares
strategies.
y
So
apoyo de los
this
países para
positioning
avanzar
of
en materia
standards
de derechos humanos
helps
y también
countries
en la
to make
inclusión de
progress
mujeres
in
en
human
energía.
rights and also including
El
women in
Banco
energy.
Mundial
The
lleva
World
largo
Bank
tiempo
has
trabajando
been
para que
for
los
a long
países puedan
time
desarrollar
working so that
diversas
countries can
competencias en
develop
cuanto al
different
avance de la igualdad de
competition
género
when it comes
y
to
la inclusión de
improving
mujeres en
the
el mundo
gender
STEM.
equality and
Por eso,
also including
Florencia, me
women in
gustaría
STEM.
preguntarte cómo
So
consideras
Florence, I'd like
que ha
to
sido el
ask,
impacto que
what
ha
do you
tenido su
think is
trabajo
the
en los países
impact of
a
your
partir de las
work in
iniciativas
countries
que
from the
desarrollan y
initiatives
cuál
that
es el
are
diagnóstico también que tienen
being
como
done,
Banco
and what is the
Mundial sobre
diagnosis as
la
a World Bank
inclusión de mujeres en las
on the
tareas
inclusion
STEM?
of women in STEM?
Hola.
Hello?
Bueno, gracias Fran, gracias a
Well,
los
thank
compañeros
you,
del
Fran.
panel, a
Thank you
Olave,
to everyone joining me in
bueno, a
the
todos
panel.
acá, la verdad un placer. Muy contenta de nuevamente, digamos, compartir unas más todos juntos de la energía, así que nada,
Well,
felices.
thank you,
A
because
ver,
it's a real
qué
pleasure being here
diagnóstico y
with
qué
you.
impacto, ¿no? Desde el punto de vista del Banco
Well, what's
Mundial,
important
me
in
gustaría
terms
un
of the
poco
World Bank,
enfocarme en
I'd
Latinoamérica,
like
¿no?
to
Que
really
es la
focus
región
in
en
Latin
la cual
America.
estamos
You know,
todos
this is a
acá junto
region
con Olave. Y
where what
un poco
we're
el
working on with
diagnóstico, ¿no?
Latin,
Uno de los
and
últimos
the
reportes que sacó el
diagnosis, you know, one of the
Mundial es
last
que
reports
la
are
región está un
that
poco
the
rezagada en términos de
region
incorporación de
is
tecnología e innovación,
been
¿no?
out, kind of an
Y en ese
outsider in
sentido,
this
poner
matter,
foco
and
en el sector
we
energético como
wanted
un
to put a
sector que puede
focus in the
justamente
energy sector,
traccionar esta innovación y
and
tecnología
that could
con las
also
nuevas
start traction
avances, ¿no?
these new
En
technologies
generación, en hidrógeno
in
y demás.
generation and
Pero que bueno,
other
para
areas.
que
But
eso suceda,
for
tiene que haber
that to
como
happen,
un capital humano disponible, ¿no?
we
Y
need
unas
to have human
instituciones
capital that's
disponibles que
available,
acompañen esa
institutions that
incorporación
are
de
available,
tecnología e
that
innovación.
will go along with the
Y ahí
incorporation
es
of
un poco
technology and
donde
innovation, and that's
la
where
radiografía, ¿no?
we
De
see
este
an
capital humano
X-ray of this
todavía
human
hay
capital,
necesidad de fortalecerlo
where
y
there's
trabajar,
still a
¿no?
need
Y
to
obviamente
strengthen
dentro de
and work,
aquellas personas y la fuerza
and of
laboral
course
del
for
sector
the workforce
digamos, que apoyan esta
that
transición del
supports
sector, bueno, ahí
this sector
las mujeres y
transition.
los jóvenes
Of
en
course, women
particular
and young
tienen como
people,
unas necesidades
they
de
have
fortalecimiento diferentes,
needs
¿no?
for strengthening that are
Entonces,
different.
si también vamos
And
a uno de
so
los reportes de la OCDE, lo
if we
que
go
como
to
diagnóstico,
the
¿no? Lo que
OECD
vemos es que si
reports, the
bien
diagnosis, and what we
Latinoamérica ha
see
avanzado un montón
is
en
that
la
Latin America has
incorporación
been making a lot of progress
en
in
educación primaria
incorporating
y en
primary
educación secundaria,
education
todavía
and
queda
secondary
bastante, ¿no?
education,
Respecto
but there's
a
still a
otras
long way
regiones,
to
por ejemplo,
go.
los promedios globales, tal vez
And in
la
regards
educación
to
secundaria,
world average,
digamos,
maybe
y el enfoque es
secondary
como que se inscriban en el
education,
secundario,
you
todavía
know,
el
people joining
79% de
high
los jóvenes,
school,
¿no? No
it's
ha
still
avanzado
about
pese a
79% of
promedios
young
globales
people.
que
There's
son,
not been a
digamos,
great
el
progress in
90%.
that.
Incluso cuando
And
tanto mujeres como
even
varones,
when
cuando
women,
ingresan
men, when they
digamos, a la educación primaria y a la
enter
educación secundaria,
primary
ya empieza a
education,
haber una
secondary
divergencia en las
education,
trayectorias,
we
¿no? O
see
sea,
a
vemos que
divergence
la
in
educación
trajectories.
de la
We
secundaria
see
de
that
los varones es más elevada que de las
school
mujeres. Entonces ahí
dropout for
empezamos a
men is
entender
higher than
que
for women,
las
and we
políticas,
see
las
there
necesidades y
that
las acciones que
the
como sociedad
needs and the
tenemos
policies
que
and the
emprender son
actions that we need
diferentes ya
to
de por
take
sí
as a
desde
society, they are
los inicios,
different
¿no?
from the
Las
beginning.
mujeres, si bien en los
Women,
sectores más
well,
vulnerables
in
tal
more
vez
vulnerable
tienen
areas,
menor
maybe
participación, los sectores
there's
más
less
vulnerables de la población, las
participation
mujeres son
in
las que
the
menos inscripción en la escuela
vulnerable
primaria
parts
tienen,
of
pero una
population.
vez que
Maybe it's
están
difficult
en
for
el
women,
sistema
but once
educativo
they are in the
logran
education
tener
system,
menor
they
deserción
have
que las mujeres,
less
¿no?
school dropout
Pero
than
después
men. But at the time of choosing a career or where they're heading after high school, we start with some differences. And in the PISA program, there's an assessment on the work of teenagers for women and men, about 15 years. We asked, what is the career that you're choosing? And women, only 16% respond that they would be interested in going for STEM careers, and for men, the Latin American average is a bit higher. So that is a signal, right? There's something there that's happening, and the responses that we need to provide, they are quite divergent. To name a diagnosis on different banks and institutions, in terms of participation, there's still a stagnated number. And women, we see that women are participating in the workforce, but for 63% for women in the workforce, but for men it's 80%. So if we want to be sustainable in the region and in the world, we should not take over half of the workforce in terms of female participation. And so just with this diagnosis, the World Bank sees that same as sometimes, poverty is multidimensional, the trajectory of women and how to strengthen participation in the sector, in the work sector, that is also multidimensional. So in the World Bank, there's a gender strategy that is set between 2024 and 2030, where there's different specific targets to comply and indicators, increasing the investment, companies led by women, or increasing access to digitalization, and those indicators are being measured a long time. So if I had to set some examples on what the World Bank has been doing, especially in Latin America, all projects, the way they work, it's not only technical assistance, which is not non-fungible funds. We could also consider credits and operations, and in Latin America, and there's always a way of measuring impact in terms of gender. From the World Bank, we ask world operations to have a gender dimension. So many of the things that we do have to do with mentoring programs, and in Uruguay, Argentina, we have a quite similar program, which is Winergy, and where we provide mentorship for women in technical careers, and we do diagnosis in terms of participation of women in Paraguay, and we strengthen and we pay scholarships, and we strengthen the technical capacities, and also make sure women that took that training actually end up working with the companies that we work with, so that we can have a wholesome whole view. So it's similar to this from the bank and organizations. We recognize that the approach needs to be multidimensional, and it needs to be complete. And what we do, we need to strengthen everything so that we can improve participation in the area.
Thank you very much, Florencia. It seemed very important to me, especially when you were talking about the importance of other organizations and available institutions, and this is where the governments and ministries play an important role. So, Karina, I would like to continue with you. I'm going to make a question in Portuguese, and I don't speak Portuguese, so I will not be translating this.
Especialmente quando desenvolve políticas públicas que se articulam entre diferentes setores. Este ano, o Brasil lançou o programa Asas para o Futuro, uma importante iniciativa para promover a incorporação precoce de mulheres em STEM. Gostaria que você nos contasse mais sobre essa política, seu foco em jovens e os primeiros resultados que você pode compartilhar dessa experiência.
Obrigada. Gracias por todos, gracias por hablar en portugués. Yo tento
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking in Portuguese. I'll try to speak Spanish, but I will try to use some Portuguese and Spanish and try to to say something to express myself. Now she's speaking again in Portuguese, so I won't be able.
Mas como diretora de transição energética, não se pode falar em transição energética justa e inclusiva se não for incluir as mulheres nessa pauta e que elas façam parte da transição energética e sejam beneficiadas. Por isso eu trabalho muito perto com as pautas de gênero, com a nossa assessoria de participação e diversidade. Todo o Ministério do Brasil tem uma assessoria especial de participação e diversidade que atuam muito perto da área técnica como eu. Então, o programa Asas do Futuro foi lançado pelo Ministério de Mulheres no Brasil, para fortalecer justamente a capacitação de mulheres jovens de 15 a 29 anos, então, adolescentes, jovens, para áreas de ciência, tecnologia, energia, né, e inovação. Então, esse programa busca capacitar essas mulheres, essas meninas jovens para áreas técnicas, né, também. E não teria como o Ministério de Minas e Energia estar fora desse grande programa que envolve não somente a área de energia, ciência, infraestrutura, inovação. Então, nós, com o Ministério de Minas e Energia, os dois ministros, a ministra de Energia e o ministro de Minas e Energia, assinaram um pacto para que o Ministério de Minas e Energia contribua com ações diretas e objetivas no programa Asas do Futuro, né? Então, esse programa vai oferecer cursos e oficinas técnicas para essas mulheres, com bolsas, são cursos gratuitos, com bolsas, porque muitas delas já podem ter filhos numa idade recente, ou têm competências com a família, né, de cuidar da mãe, ou dos avós, ou dos parentes. Então, traz bolsas de estudo, auxílio financeiro, para que elas possam estudar. E o Ministério tem identificado as áreas de interesse que vai contribuir para a inserção de mulheres na área de energia, né? Isso é importante que o Ministério tenha esse pacto dentro de nós, assim, do nosso Ministério. Nós temos um comitê de diversidade e gênero, COGEMEV em português, mas é o comitê coordenado pelo Ministério, todas as instituições de energia, empresas públicas, autarquias, agências reguladoras que estão embaixo do Ministério participam desse comitê. E juntos, homens e mulheres participam desse comitê, encontram ações e iniciativas para fortalecer a participação de mulheres na área de Minas e Energia. Então, o que nós iremos fazer dentro desse comitê? Estamos trabalhando agora num plano de ação de atividades concretas para apresentar às entidades que participam. Um dos resultados recentes, por exemplo, tivemos a conclusão de um curso técnico para eletricistas, né? Acho que mesmo em espanhol, para eletricistas, e foi a formação de 1.000 mulheres, não no único curso, né, ao longo de todos os anos, foram formadas 1.000 mulheres em eletricistas que trabalham na rua, no campo, na distribuição. E é muito legal, porque a gente foi lá com a ministra de Mulheres, a primeira-dama, os ministros, reconhecendo que elas continuaram. Importante que era um curso só para mulheres. Por quê? Quando era curso misto, as mulheres se sentiam um pouco intimidadas, por ser uma profissão muito masculina, não vou conseguir, não vou aprender. Quando abriu um curso só de mulheres, foi sucesso total, todas se identificaram. E lá nesse evento, nessa formação, mostraram exemplos de mulheres que gostam de estarem lá, se gostam de estar nessa profissão que esse curso facilitou. E esse curso não é do Ministério, é da concessionária, da distribuidora, da utility. Mas ter o comitê onde você espalha ações, compartilha ideias, promove que mais ideias, mais cursos como esses possam ser promovidos em outras áreas, não só nas distribuidoras, mas indústrias de óleo e gás, indústrias de mineração, possam usar a experiência e usar no seu setor. Então, assim, o Asas do Futuro é um programa do Ministério das Mulheres, que o Ministério da Energia pactuou em contribuir para cursos, formações, oficinas para mulheres jovens de 15 a 29 anos, cursos gratuitos, com bolsas, e aí após o curso, essa iniciativa de que elas entrem no setor de fato, né? Que é o nosso papel como governo, incentivar a inserção delas no mercado. Posições de liderança, que aí é outra ação que estamos promovendo, que elas entrem nos cargos de liderança. Você vê muitos ministros, depois secretários, aí assessoras, técnicas, né? As mulheres sempre no segundo escalão, terceiro escalão. Como a gente faz, como hoje muito bem apresentado pela ministra, né? Que eu tive a oportunidade de conversar um pouquinho em outras oportunidades. Então, como a gente traz a posição de liderança para as mulheres. Então, é um pouco disso. Educação primária, educação técnica, entrar no mercado e do mercado elas acessarem posições de liderança. Iremos tentar avançar com esses programas, essas iniciativas como Ministério.
Muchas gracias, Karina. La verdad, muy, muy interesante la experiencia.
Thank you very much, Karina. That was a very interesting experience. It's not just experience about offering great free resources that are available for women. And we did the same thing in Chile, and we have the same diagnosis, and it's really good to create these spaces that are available, especially the specific for women, such as taking care of other people. And it's very important to create these committees and to be able to coordinate among different areas. And we have different parts, actors. So we'd like to talk with Diana, who works for the organization that defines as an organization that has an impact on women who want to dedicate their life to sciences and technologies. And it's always important to work about helping in the region. And it's also important to tell us more about these different areas that help us with these projects that are related to It Girls Latam. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I came from Colombia, and our organization has been active for over 13 years, and it's a promotion of women. We are also a non-profit organization, and for us that's very important. Colombia, and we're not only related to Colombia, but we work with other countries in Latin America. For us, it's important to create this new path for women who can. We have different jobs in our portfolio that are getting in different parts of the society, different areas of women, and we have our own program called Appropriate, which is basic skills in IT about safety and cloud safety information, etc. And all these have to quickly migrate for the competency in artificial intelligence, etc. So we are always getting updated. We also have STEM program that works as a vocational awakening for girls and adolescents, because we are already working for 15-year-old girls, and we also have 360 digital safety program where we have ambassadors of the online safety, and we use it in whole Latin America. And we have created that adolescents and young people can understand the internet and consider it a safe place where they can live in this digital society. And we have programs 2.0 that teach that women, not all of us are engineers, but I do congratulate those that are, because we need them. But we also have women that work in design, in different sciences, physics, etc., where we have to understand science and technology as an industry where we are protagonists due to our knowledge and our talents that we can add. So in these Talents 2.0, we are trying to help women and children. Well, this is mostly for adult women, so that they they can be developing their future skills so that they can have reskilling and upskilling, so that they can find different changes in their career, because women go through so many different things in their lives. So we want to change our careers, and the industry allows us to have this flexibility. And we have a STEM cathedra for the women, future women, and we are training women in their STEM leadership. We have women in sciences, technology, and maths, but we don't believe in ourselves. We think that it's normal what we're doing, and what we do with this platform is that we let them know that their leadership can awaken, and through that leadership these women get that certified and create a transformation, as Fernanda said, in their territories and in their communities. So we have several places where we act, and because of that we also wanted to know if these strategies are well focused. And this year, we started the Stand Women Annual Report for Colombia, and which was a mapping of different initiatives for Colombian women that work in STEM plus gender, so that we can see what are all these initiatives and what we were doing. And we discovered that exactly we have to start working from the early childhood, because it's create those skills so that the girls and women can start their path in the sciences and math. And we also discovered that there are many women, almost that are over 40, that have traceability. They have technical and technological knowledge that is superior to their, but they do not have this transference of knowledge. So we have to be there with different strategies, so these women that are part of the industry become these role models that we need to promote this. So these are, in general terms, what we do. And up till now, we have impacted over 7,200 women and girls, and we have our own mechanisms to measure the impact and the results, and that allows us to see the radiography of what we're doing, but also to compare us so that we can understand what else can we add as organization to the industry. And when we're talking now about the energy industry, these are, there is like women are less than 9% present in these leadership roles in energy. Thank you very much, Diana. That's a very important role that you're performing. And when you're talking about the early age parts, I think I was very impacted when in Chile, and girls and boys have the same results in maths until they are in the 3rd, 4th grade elementary school. But the girls in the first grade elementary school, they were saying that they are doing worse in maths, and because they believe that they're not good for maths, even though they had exactly the same results. So I think that the early childhood stimulation is very important. And we also have to, I also liked when you said that there are many things that happen to us as women in our lives, and that's why the organizations should always consider also that women who work in these areas always have so much to share. So Lisa, you have a very important experience from the academic point of view in physics. So there are many and different challenges because women have this unconscious blindness or bias over their role in sciences. And you focus on 2 lines, and there are 2 questions. What are the aspects that women are living now that are working working in this area, and what do we need to inspire girls and young women so that they get into these areas so that they can reach this scientific role. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much, Olade. This is my first Energy Week. I would like to first of all mention that that I was invited to this panel to speak in a gender panel. Is the first prejudice is that women in science, we don't want to talk about gender, we want to talk about science. And the science community always sees that they don't look at it as a good sign that we are talking about gender, because we should be only talking about things that we are skilled at, that we are trained for. So there has been a great opportunity and great change, because there is intrinsic prejudice in the training in sciences and technologies that say that as we are minorities, we have to defend that we have enough talent to perform the role that we've been trained for and that we studied for. So that's why we always use this important part when we are doing mentoring. And so first of all, I would like to thank Olade for this opportunity to get over this prejudice about talking about gender. Now, from the point of view of my contribution to this panel, I don't have that many statistics. I can bring my personal experience that it could be not without importance statistically speaking, but without doubt, I am a woman in an area where there are very few women, and that experience it changes different challenges that women face in physics, especially when we do fundamental investigation, working in a specific area of the semiconductor and structural materials to create devices for the light conductivity, which connects directly to the energy. And they all depend on the generational moment that we are living, because it wasn't the same experience for me when I was working, when I was studying, and when I started with my professional career, and when I was doing my doctorate degree, and in these different scientific areas. When I started my career, there was such a small representation of female. There was like one girl per every 10 men. So, well, as invisible as possible as a female. I completely neutralize my female aspects, because as I'm studying physics, how can you possibly paint your nails or fix your hair? So it's not considered a good sign. It's not easily accepted, and you get the feedback from that community that takes you to completely eradicate yourself. So to find yourself finally as a woman in scientific society is a long process that takes a long introspection and comprehension of all the levels that we have at this social level. And because of that, I think one of the key elements is that we could transmit to other women, to other young women, is a reflection. And to have the representation, we are talking about statistics and the programs and the sectors, but in life, in our own life, family life, in social relations, we have a terrible challenge for women in this professional world, because that very small battle, statistically insignificant, but it can send a sign to all these other women. Because if I am a scientific leader and I don't have a very equal relationship with my partner, who also happens to be scientist, I'm not going to have good leadership, no matter how good a professional I am. There is a human component or humane component that is necessary in these technical spaces, and that's very important because it takes a lot of work, and women have to make twice as much of the progress. We have to perform, we have to be creative, we can get the finance, we can design good experiments, but that we are also imaginative. So we have to work twice as hard, and yes, shouldn't also say said like, and it should be beautiful, but not too beautiful, because then you're not doing your work well. So it also changes from one generation to another, and it's one of the areas that is very important for me. And as I was making progress professionally, I managed to achieve this balance, to find myself as a woman, stop apologizing for being feminine and looking as I look, as my aesthetics, for my needs, etc., and to get that freedom and to empower myself professionally. And it's an internal battle that is very difficult, and we have to be brave to lead this battle and to make it visible. So that would be my advice for women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lidice. I really love your intervention, and truly the surveys do not lie. And what Lidice, you know, what she shared, that's something we have found, and there's nothing more valuable than listening to the stories of women. Thank you for sharing that, and it really made a lot of sense to me, you know, that on different spaces that we touched on, not only in energy politics, it's so many other places where it seems like we need to stop being women so that we can validate ourselves and to use a space. And that's where I see lots of value in being women, and where we find each other again, and we find within ourselves, and we reivindicate who we are, and we also reivindicate our space. And going back to this type of socializing, I would like to go back to you, Florencia. And one of the aspects that I would like to highlight in the World Bank is that they have really support women in making progress in areas such as energy, and not only in having associations with women, but also in interinstitutional collaboration between countries. So I would like to ask you, Florencia, how do you consider the alliance factor in these areas has an impact in women on STEM? Thank you. And I think it's important what you're mentioning, that the reality is that while we talk about statistics and, you know, organizations, you know, it's a social problem. And as a social problem, we need to solve that. But yes, and as a society, you know, the complements between different perspectives and approaches, that's really important as well. And the bank, when having a world scope of its activities, what they have done is what Fran was saying, trying to make sure that regions and countries where they work, you know, there's no support or approach in a lonely way. And if I can bring out the experience from other regions, the bank has worked in Africa and Asia to create spaces for networking. So they are called We Power, you know. And these are spaces where we do calling for public organizations and women's networks, and all together we build an action plan and a series of goals that are for that region. Because of course then if we bring that back to Latin America, we know what the challenges are in Latin America, and they don't seem like the ones from El Salvador, you know, none of them are the same. but we do have a common diagnosis and a problem that we need to solve. And many times what we're facing is that many institutions, in the end, we're all doing the same. The World Bank is doing a gender diagnosis on this and that, and then the same diagnosis happens, and then this and that, and then women in mentorship. So we also do mentorship, and of course there's 1,000 courses online, and so there's a point where you understand actors, and it's not very efficient. And so if we could coordinate a bit more, we would know that efficiency in time, impact, resources, it's much better if we can collaborate. So that way, Latin America and the bank intervention, that's the only region where there's no organization network working to strengthen the participation of women and young people in the area. And so in that way, we're starting with an initiative called Power to Power, which is calling different organizations. We've had conversations with different institutions where of course, the network that will be launched, it's an important access. I don't want to jump ahead and share too much, but these are the relevant actors in Latin America and as representatives of the civil society. And so it's that. The associations and collaborating, it's not only so that women can share spaces and which is what we share, but it's also so that we can create efforts and synergies, because there's lots to learn and there's things that we can replicate, and especially because it's a sector that needs to continue supporting the growth of job generations, and of course something that is sustainable and inclusive for everyone. And to wrap up, well, this is a social problem, but if we go over what all panels have been saying in their interventions, we see that there's a bit of education there, and culture there, and there's a bit of politics, in the regulation frameworks, but there's also a little bit of, private sector needs and workspaces. So all of these partnerships and alliances that I am sharing at a regional level, they have that, they call for action so that we can all contribute and we can work all together with every area.
Muchas gracias, Florencia.
Well, thank you, Florencia. I really, what really struck out is what you were saying about sharing good practices. And, it's not only for sharing, but I think one of the lines I'll say in Spanish, one of the lines has to do with gathering information.
Karina, volto com você. A única maneira de tornar visíveis as desigualdades de gênero é medindo-as. Muitas vezes, tendemos a pensar que abordar essas questões é responsabilidade de setores específicos, mas trata-se de não perder de vista uma injustiça social. E todos podemos, no setor energético, nos permitirão compreender as questões críticas que precisamos abordar para ser um espaço mais inclusivo. Então, gostaria de perguntar sobre as experiências de 2 estudos que o Brasil fez. O primeiro analisa a incorporação da perspectiva de gênero nas políticas energéticas dos países do G20, além de perguntar pelo estudo sobre o desenvolvimento de iniciativas para mulheres no setor de mineração e energia do Brasil.
Obrigada, pergunta, né? Obrigada pela pergunta. Acho que antes de eu trazer em relação aos estudos, que é um pouco do que eu percebi como diretora, mas é uma sensação que tínhamos no Brasil. Qual era o diagnóstico, né? Qual é a participação de mulheres no setor de minas e energia? Você disse, sem diagnosticar é impossível planejar e encontrar as... Então, com a parceria energética Brasil-Alemanha, foi conduzido estudo das componentes de gênero nas políticas energéticas nos países do G20, que a ideia era encontrar como é que esses países estão desenhando as suas ações. E foi com experiências internacionais. Encontramos 4 fases, dividimos os países em 4 grupos, e a gente percebeu que há uma diferença, que é o que todo mundo já percebe, mas em números, das políticas no norte global e as políticas no sul global. Então, nos países do norte global, as políticas são mais responsivas, né? Elas já começam a atacar diretamente as causas dos problemas. Enquanto no sul global, nos países do G20, no sul Brasil, Índia e outros, né, do sul global, são ainda informativas. Você comunica, você dá transparência das diferenças de gênero. E aí, quais foram as recomendações? Que nós temos que, economicamente, é que elas também tenham acesso a mais energia, que é uma questão de envolvê-las na sociedade, né? Além das capacitações desde jovens. Então, como as meninas trouxeram do Banco Mundial e também na experiência da Geek Girls, não somente mulheres já maduras, mas desde a infância, incluí-las em ações que traz um reflexo de quem eu quero ser, né? Qual a profissão que eu quero seguir. Isso faz com que as políticas amadureçam e sejam mais responsivas. Eu trago um pouco só, acho que para finalizar, para contribuir no tempo, um pouco da minha experiência, você falou. Eu queria ser médica quando era criança, porque eu achava maravilhoso ser médica, era uma profissão de meninas. Depois eu quis ser arquiteta, porque também era uma profissão de meninas. Até que eu gostei de física, matemática, achei super legal. Eu quero ser engenheira. Toda a minha família falou assim, engenheira? Isso é coisa de homem, você vai trabalhar como homem, você vai virar um homem. Eu disse, meu Deus, eu não quero ser homem, eu quero ser mulher, mas eu quero trabalhar como engenheira. Aí eu fiquei meio tonta, assim. Porque o que eu estou fazendo na minha vida adolescente? E aí eu conheci uma engenheira química que trabalhava com meu pai na indústria, e eu perguntei, o que você faz? Ele assim, engenheira, faço isso, aquilo. Eu vou ser engenheira, porque tem uma mulher engenheira. Então, um pouco que você falou, né? Não são só as políticas de capacitação, mas de reflexo, onde as meninas possam se enxergar, eu posso estar naquele lugar. Eu posso fazer aquela atividade sem ser menina, sem deixar de ser mulher, sem deixar de ser mãe, sem deixar de ser irmã, esposa. Eu posso ser mulher, mas também posso trabalhar nas áreas de STEM. Eu passei por isso e eu acho que as nossas políticas devem levar não só a capacitação, mas que as meninas se enxerguem naquela posição.
Muchas gracias, Karina. Bueno, para que me reten.
Karina, well, I'm sorry, in another time, we're going to do a synthesis because the second question that I had for Diana was related to the women report. I'm going to mention again so you can look it up. SWAR, S-W-A-R. Just to wrap up, I'll share a small synthesis just to ask and hope you can just respond in 1 minute before we can leave. And thanks to everyone who joined us. Well, energy transition needs women and in every area, but every area needs to be committed so that the Academy has an important role here. And from what you have experienced, what do you think are the challenges and opportunities so that the academic role can move along and we can have voice in energy transition? Thank you. That is a really good question. Here in the Energy Week, we started with an event connecting the academic sector and the energy transition sector, looking for that alliance. And it's an alliance that whenever there's an energy transition, we say, okay, this is not a technical matter. There's many more dimensions. But, you know, the training for those that work in technical areas are very vertical. You know, those that work in physics, they learn physics or chemical engineering, etc. So this is where we need abilities in the academy, and they're usually not developed. And when it comes to the academic communities, we usually don't see a lot of representation, and we need to look at things, and we're finding a second barrier in women. And from physics, I am opening this meant something where you need to open up professionally to go from a space of academic research towards energy transition with all of its dimensions and communication work. And we see that feedback is, well, you can be an actress now, and so you can be an actor there, and from there, male would receive different feedback. Oh, no, you know that now he wants to do scientific research. So the response of the environment is different when you are men or women. So we need to provide better tools for women so that they can grow professionally and they can do this cultural transformation, which means that will work in a comprehensive way in energy transition. That's been my experience, and it's an interesting discovery for me. And I really, I'm already 50, and I feel like I can face this. But, I'm sure some people will identify that there is a barrier that we need to jump over. Thank you. Thank you. We would like to thank the panel, Dana, girls from LATAM, and everyone's working from the Ministry of Mining and Energy in Brazil and from the University of Havana. Thank you. Thank you, Lade, for trusting us. It's the second year I am present here. It's such an important space that I'm so excited about, and we'll have very good news to share with you later on. Thank you. Thank you. Please stay here for a picture. It's a picture of the panel. And meanwhile, I'm going to tell you.
Mientras tanto, les voy a contar que vamos a continuar.
Meanwhile, I'm going to share with you that we'll continue with the session. The session is not over.
Gracias. Y ahora sí, siguiendo con el programa,
now, continue with the program, we're going to invite Gloria Alvarenga, Director for Integration, Access, and Energy Security, Energy Safety in OLADE. And she's going to talk about the next milestone in gender, which we will be able to witness now. Gloria.
Bueno, gracias a todas, a todos. Qué bueno ver esta sala llena hoy.
Thank you very much. It's great to see this room full. So I would like to thank the Minister of Uruguay who had been here with us, and we need more ministers to be with us at these discussion panels. And I would like to thank this panel that was very strong. We could see there was private and public organization. There was also political sector. There were also academia, etc. So it's great to have that. So quickly, when we talk about the energy and gender perspective, we don't only talk about us as women. We also have to consider decisions about the energy, the access in use of energy, and also work in that. So we know that the impact is different in women and men of different social groups, and for this perspective also helps us to identify our differences, but also to create these opportunities where we can use these and build these energetic systems that are going to be more fair and more inclusive. And when we do the transition of the energy and diminish or reduce its dependence on fossil fuels, but also to look for structural conditions that allows these energetic transitions is a dynamic process. And as we could hear in the previous panel, there are many gaps in gender issues, and in different areas we still keep knowing that the main energetic dilemmas differently affect different groups of society, and especially women and girls. And this is a reality that we could see in this very important panel. There are certain initiatives that look to strengthen the presence of women in this sector, and many of them are important so that we can have these generations in our support system, and also to have a network in energy that is going to help us to create new opportunities, development, professional developments, and also group construction of the projects, but also to be integrated and be part of this integration. And from there, we also can see integration. From OLADE, we are also supporting these efforts just quickly. 2023, based on a ministerial decision in public sector at the work table, they decided to drive these projects that are related to gender perspective in all the activities and all the operations that are related to the energy sector in Latin America and Caribbean, and especially not only women but also girls in this region. And I want to mention that on Friday, for the first time, we're going to have a group of the 30 girls 10 years old, and they're going to come here for the first time to this energy week, and they're going to have their workshop oriented towards STEM, and they are also going to have the Energy Sustainability Agency from the Chilean Ministry of Energy. They made it possible. They are going to, these girls are going to be at their event, their workshop is going to be closed, but they are going to have a chance to go through these different areas and get to see all the women and men that are here supporting us, so that they can understand that these women have a future. And I'm just leaving this information for you so that you see these girls. You will know that they are going to come to participate in these events for the first time. That's a round of applause for these girls who are learning so much. And based on this, in 2024, last year, within the Energy Week, we also had a coordinated work. We started coordinated work with the Association of Women in Energy in Chile. This is an association we could thank so much, but it makes me so emotional. But we started working with an idea that is going to demand from us to start working on something, how the Latin American network of women in energy and Caribbean. And so we are going to also continue talking about this important inauguration. We have created in-person workshops that are going to strengthen the women capacities, and they're also going to connect their stories and provide concrete action. We did it together with the Latin American Organization of the Energy, with intergovernment cooperation, interorganization, and we also did with the associations. So this is a message that we have to keep clear. It's that our union, getting together is what's going to make it possible. We visited Caribbean, the South area. We also connected with them. We saw their values, and we started with the female associations, and we started with Argentina, Uruguay, and we immediately, they joined us and decided to join us in these efforts with a lot of commitment, and we worked so hard. And next week we also continue with our work, so I'm extremely grateful. We are going to be able to continue working with that, with this strengthening of our capacity, exchange of our experiences, and we were able to create this, as Maria Francisca mentioned. It's the women who are professionals and technicians in energy sector, and it's going to key point to strengthen their leadership and visibility in sustainable public policies. And this project of the LACME is also a part of inclusion of the regional policies. LACME also had last year a ministry decision, and they agreed to drive these directed actions so that we can continue with these mechanisms and the regional and sub-regional mechanisms regarding integration. We are also part of the different Latin American and Caribbean network of the energy. This is a part of integration. We are going to be able to facilitate this technical knowledge, and we are going to provide the tools of the articulation sustainability, and it's a part of the constructions of the skills and capacities that we are committed to. And we know that this moment we have this opportunity, and it's a unique chance to do this. And as we have LACME network is also strengthening the integration and cooperation between different associations of women in energy field, and this is a multi-environmental effort, because we are building a regional networks, and it's also driving this transformation and turning the energy into an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable space that is also helping the cooperation of multi-actors, academic, private sector, public sector, and all these different and of course, an important different strategic elements that are here working hard with us to create this, what we were talking about in the panel, to get this meaning. So the idea is to get together and work together. And I would like to thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm going to now invite Pia Suarez, who is the president of the Association of Women in Energy in Chile, but especially because I want to ask her to help us to understand how this network is going to continue working, and to talk about this historical moment when we are supporting each other. Thank you so much, Pia, and to you and your team, because I know that these were very difficult days, but we are managing it, and thank you everyone who is here with us, Vero, Paola, and ISO as well. So thank you all. Without you, we wouldn't be here doing what we could do, and creating these tools that are going to be very productive and are going to help women in this industry, and they're going to promote in this country to every country, so that we can continue this path being stronger and more united. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Now we are going to inaugurate the network so that we can get other founding associations. I would like to call Veronica Barzola, president of the Argentinian Association of Women in Energy. Paola Pimentel, the president of the Dominican Republic Association of Women in Energy. Noelia Noamates. Noelia, I forgot your last name. Please let Noelia Macier. She's the president of the Uruguayan Association of Women in Energy. Que la había visto, pero ¿cómo? Ya no se está proyectando.
Bueno, mientras vuelve a aparecer la
Well, while
presentación,
we get our presentation up, we wanted to comment that all four of us are here. We are founding associations of this network, and at the beginning, what defined us is that we are four jurisdictionally constituted association in our countries. This is a Latin American and Caribbean network. In October 2024, during the Energy Week, we signed this AME so that we could create these two important objectives, because first of all, Chile was asked to accompany and create these workshops to show other women in the region how we've managed to I'm a little bit embarrassed to say how could we become successful, but how were we able to promote our association, because we had 823 members of our association in less than 2 years of existence. So based on that, we wanted to share our experience. We were able to be in different parts. We had it in Honduras, in Guatemala, in Ecuador, Dominican Republic, creating or working or co-creating, because the message toward all these countries is to start very humbly, because we know that all these realities are different, and we didn't want to start this topic as this is the success a magic wand. No, we wanted to tell you that you have different structures, different cultures, different ways to relate. So at least for us, this was what worked for us. So you could maybe try something. So here we had different workshops. We were co-creating, talking, trying to find out what worked, what didn't work. And because of many of these workshops, we shared lots of experiences that we could get. In Ecuador, we were very happy to hear that we had different associations, how to deal with workshops, how to deal with media, etc. This is something that we didn't know how to do. So we learned so much from these experiences. And during this work, we've also seen the different associations that were legally constituted bodies, like from Uruguay and by Noelia, Argentina, Veronica. And we had several meetings with Olade, and surprisingly, when we went to Dominican Republic workshop, they had already something similar association. I don't know if this is a strange or magical experience, but when we started building our websites and seeing how we get organized, we could see that we had similar objectives, similar work committees that are being organized, different networking, and it worked. We all worked in very similar ways without having inspired one another, because we worked in similar ways, and that was a very good conviction to see, even though we lived it in different ways at different levels, we could all share, and we also could see in our workshops that we are very similar. Our pain, our silences, the gaps that we have to address, the percentages of participation are very coincidentally very similar of the participation of women in the industry. And this is something that we don't want to skip or mention. If there's something that marks our presence. There are different initiatives, different organizations of women that get together facing a different topic, and we are the civil association, and that makes us to make a difference with our objectives and how we approach these topics. We cannot ever lose that from our side. What does it mean that we are a civil association? That we are reaching these changes, and these changes will not be immediate, and many of them are long-term changes. Those who make the decisions and who design the policies in the public sector. So, but we're not all only from the public sector. So we have to try to get this role. Women, especially because women will always want to do everything and try to accomplish everything. And very often we take on responsibilities that are part of public policies. We have to bridge the dialogue so that we can transmit how we can live as protagonists of these stories that happen to us. And then we have this triangle of the private sector, which is where we get the investment, when we get finances and the execution. And then finally, we have to, why do we want to mention this? Because I work in a company and there are people who work in associations, work in the public sector, but when I move and I change my job, I move together with my association. I am a person in this, and the strength that we have as the head of the gender office is that our skills in association is impressive. And we also have other actors that are very important, which is academic institutions, banks, multilateral development bodies, and then also information. So that being said, we can say that this diagnostic, this network, we are nodules, we are the network. So I want to pass the mic and leave the stage for the first association to the AMES Argentina.
Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas
Good
gracias.
afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thanks to our colleagues that we have been working with. Thank you for the space for starting with this venture. Well, as many of the previous panelists, gaps are important, and according to regional statistics and global statistics, because we are part of the global media, when we compare presence of men and women, in no case of the energy sector, women are over 30%. Of course, it improves when we talk about renewables or other sectors that are more traditional, such as oil and gas, but the gap is very big. Especially in statistics in Argentina, we see that the presence of women is decreasing when we talk about bigger companies and as we scale up in the direction positions. And this is why it's so important, because we think that social changes are due to synergy or consensus and collective effort. I'm sorry, we have some connection issues. And this is why from Argentina and AMES, we are also part of the LACMED network, because we think it's important to create a change altogether in a world that is facing energy challenges, climate challenges. With no precedent, we believe that international visibility can help us share experiences and exploring projects, expanding positive practices and avoid making mistakes that were already made. And of course, in the context of Olare, the possibility of having an influence on governments and political decisions, and also in the leaders in the energy sector, so that gender is not only part of public agendas, but also public agendas in the long term. Civilization at international level, in women's organizations, women that are leading in energy. That is one of the strategies to break stereotypes in a sector that is historically very masculine, and it's a way of opening doors for other women so that they can be developed and they can create more balanced teams and more efficient teams. And working in all the sectors allows to address energy sectors, and considering economy, environment, industry, and enriching our perspectives and making our solution search to be more sustainable. So in conclusion, today from AMES, we are committed to work on challenges of internationalization and the intersectorial of LACME. And they will go around the energy transition that is just, and also the decreasing of the gender gaps in the sector and the representation of women in decision-making in Latin America and the Caribbean. To work so that we can create presence in regional international forums such as COP or even this space, and generating organizations that work on international level, regional level, those that address governance, and also specific matters, those that involve the government or involve private sector, and to create collaboration strategies that will help. And lastly, from AMES, I'd like to really thank Olare once again for generating the conditions so that this network can happen. And we know that we're facing a historical moment, and we're really proud of working with all of you in a professional space that is serious and sustained to generate an energy transition that is just in our continent. Thank you.
Gracias, Verónica.
Thank you, Veronica. I will be brief because I had already shared that we're over 800 partners. And Veronica, I wanted to highlight that our commitment, because when we got together, okay, we said, let's commit to something serious, generating alliances in the intersector, right? Internalization and intersector. And we took over dialogue and a compromise when we wanted to train people. And I would like to hand it over to Paola.
Gracias, Pia.
Thank you, Pia. My colleagues, thank you, Olare, on behalf of the Dominican Republic and the Network of Women in Energy, for allowing us to be here today. Truly, I think that the word that you were looking for was serendipity, right? That's the word. Because truly, when Ben was born, because thankfully I have one of the founders joining me, Michelle. It was in 2001, and it was a time where women felt the need to group and to support each other, to sustain each other. So when we started looking at other initiatives in other countries, we saw that yes, we were all behind a common goal, and it was promoting platforms that would really help us to train and to attract and retain and push more leadership in the sector, but also providing a safe space so that through our experiences we could inspire and we could feel, we could get inspiration and provide inspiration. And with the same difficulties and also overcoming every gap that I will not mention again because along the entire previous panel it was mentioned. When we had the opportunity of going to the workshop in the Dominican Republic, it all fit, and we once again took over the commitment of being a bridge between the Caribbean, Central America, and Latin America so that we can continue supporting and reaching the energy transition that is fair and that is inclusive. And so from the Dominican Republic and on behalf of our network, we said yes, we'd like to join in, and that's our commitment.
Noelia?
Noelia?
Bueno, buenas tardes a todas y todos.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Que nada, contarles que aún me
First,
nació
I
hace
wanted
2
to
años,
tell you
en una
that
semana de
this was
energía,
born a few
justamente.
years
Así que
ago
para
in the
nosotras
Energy
es de
Week.
verdad una alegría
And
volver a
so
estar
for
acá,
us, really, it's an
uniéndonos
honor
a
being
este hecho
here,
histórico.
joining this
Aume, bueno,
historical
pertenece a
milestone. Aume
casi 2 años,
has
porque
been
sí,
for
y
about
ya
2
hemos
years,
conseguido tener más de
and
200 socias.
we
Que
have over
nosotras le
200
llamamos
partners,
200
which
voces,
is what we
porque eso es
call
lo que representamos,
200
las
voices, because
voces
that's what we
de esas
represent, the
mujeres.
voices of
Es un
those
número que en
women.
Uruguay no deja de
And it's a
sorprendernos
number
porque
that in
es un
Uruguay
país
is
muy
very
pequeño y haber
surprising because,
encontrado
you know,
200
Uruguay is
mujeres
very
con
small, and
energía,
finding
la
200
verdad que
women
es
in
una alegría,
energy,
pero también una sorpresa.
to be honest,
Cuando
it's
nos
quite
preguntaron qué
joyful, and it's also
compromiso
a
queríamos
surprise. And
asumir
when we were
y en
asked
qué
what was the
queríamos
commitment that
aportar
we
a
wanted
esta
to
red,
take on and
dijimos todo,
where we
pero
wanted to
bueno,
contribute on the
teníamos que
network, we
elegir
said
algo.
everything, but of course we
Entonces
had to
es un
pick
verdadero
something.
honor, de verdad, estar
And
aquí
it's
hoy
truly an
representando
honor
a
being
UME,
here
a la Asociación
representing
Uruguaya de
UME, the
Mujeres y Energía,
Uruguayan
para
Association of
sumarnos
Women
a la red del
Energy,
ACME.
to
Nosotros
join
nos
the
integramos
ACME
a esta
network,
iniciativa
and
con un firme
we joined this
compromiso,
initiative with a
que es
strong
aportar a
commitment,
la
which
articulación
is
y a la
contributing to
coordinación
the
de la red
articulation and the
y
coordination
también
of the
para
network,
conseguir alianzas
and to
estratégicas,
get strategic
porque estamos
alliances,
convencidas que el
because we
trabajo
are
colectivo va a
convinced that the
potenciar
collective
nuestra labor.
work
Se
will be
habló
help
mucho,
us
¿no?, de la
in
asociatividad,
what we do.
de no
We
duplicar
were
esfuerzos,
talking
y por
about
eso
now
creemos que la
doubling efforts,
articulación y la
and
moderación
that's why
son
we believe the
clave
articulation moderation
para
are
que esta red
key
funcione.
so that the network can work.
Vivimos en un mundo que exige
We live in
que
a world
enfrentemos
that
ciertos
demands
desafíos,
for us to
desafíos
face certain
energéticos,
challenges,
desafíos
energy
sociales,
challenges, social
que
challenges,
requieren herramientas como
which
esta red
need
que están
tools
haciendo hoy.
such as
Entonces,
the
esta red
ones that we
era
have
una
here in the network.
necesidad
And
a la
so
cual
this was
acudimos,
truly a
por
need.
supuesto,
And
rápidamente.
of course,
La
it's
visibilidad de
something
esta red
that
se
we
volvió
start looking at
esencial.
instantly.
Buscamos construir
And
una
this
presencia
became essential. We
inteligente,
wanted to have
capaz de
influence,
posicionar y que
and
sea de
we
manera
wanted
ineludible
to be
la
able to
transición
position
energética
ourselves
justa,
a fair
inclusiva
energy
y con
transition
enfoque
that is
de género
inclusive
en
and
las
that has a
agendas de las
gender
personas que
focus in
toman
the agendas
decisiones.
of people that
Creemos
make
que ese es el
decisions.
camino.
And
Nuestra
so
misión
we
trasciende
believe
fronteras.
that this is the right path,
Queremos
and
compartir
our decisions
experiencias,
go
difundir
across borders.
prácticas
We want to
exitosas
share
y
experiences and
romper
to share
estereotipos,
successful
que
practices
se ha
and
hablado un
breaking
poco en los paneles
stereotypes, which is
anteriores,
something we've
pero
already
que
discussed in
desafortunadamente
previous
aún
panels.
están
But
limitando
you
la
know, sometimes
participación de
we are
mujeres en el
limiting the
sector.
participation of
Y
women in
vaya
the
si
sector,
necesitamos mujeres
and
en el
we
sector
do need
energético.
women in the sector.
Esta red nos va a ayudar a multiplicar
And
nuestras
so this
voces.
network will help us multiply
Aspiramos
our
no solamente
voices,
a tener un
and
sector
we
más
hope we
equitativo,
not
sino
only
también
get
más
to have a
innovador,
more
más
equal
atractivo,
sector, but
y que
something that
logre
is more
retener
attractive
a
and
esas
that will
mujeres
manage
que
to
ya les
retain
cuesta acercarse.
women that already
El
have a
diálogo
hard time
regional
getting
va a ser nuestra
closer.
herramienta
And
clave
so this
para
will be our
enriquecer
key
nuestras
tool
miradas
so that we
y
can
abordar los
enrich our
desafíos con una
approach,
visión integral.
and
Lo vamos
we
a hacer
can
en
look at things
alianzas
from
con el
a
sector
comprehensive
público, el sector
way.
privado,
We see
la
this with the
academia y
public
los
sector,
organismos
private
multilaterales.
sector, the academia,
Estamos
and the multilateral
convencidas de que la
organizations.
suma de
We
esfuerzos
are convinced
amplifica el impacto
that the joint of
en
efforts
todas
amplifies the impact
nuestras
that all of our
y
organizations
abre
have,
camino a un cambio
and it opens the
necesario
path
pero
for a
también
necessary
sostenible.
road that is also
Además, al
sustainable.
compartir nuestros
And
logros y nuestros
when
aprendizajes
sharing
y también
everything that we have
desaprendizajes, porque también los
accomplished,
hay,
everything that we have learned
queremos
or
inspirar
that
a
we
otros países
have
a crear
unlearned,
sus propias
we want
redes
to
para que se unan a
invite
esta
countries to
red
create
que
their own
está en
networks or
constante
join a
crecimiento.
network which is under constant
Cada
growth.
nueva incorporación va a
And
fortalecer
every
nuestra
new
voz
corporation will strengthen our
colectiva y
voice,
nos va a
our collective
acercar
voice,
más
and
a
will
esa
bring us
visión del
closer
sector
to
energético
this
inclusivo que todos
view
queremos.
of this inclusive view.
Finalmente, en nombre de
And
nuestra
finally,
organización,
on behalf
expreso
of
un
our
profundo agradecimiento a la OLADE
organization,
por
we
abrirnos
are
esta
really
puerta, por
thankful
esta
for
oportunidad
LADE for
que es
bringing us,
histórica,
for sharing
de
this
verdad,
opportunity,
y
a
muy
historic
necesaria. Nos
opportunity.
sentimos honradas, de
And
verdad,
we
de
are
ser parte
very honored
fundadora de esta red
to be
y en el
part of
trabajo
this network
conjunto, la
where
fraternidad
with everything that we have been
ya somos
working
hermanas
for, you know, we are already, it's like we're sisters, you know, and it's something that will really push us. When we amplify our voices, we're not only part of the change, but we are the energy that is transforming. Thank you.
Bueno, queríamos presentarle un poco.
Well, we wanted to introduce this, and we were all working together so that we could shape up the network, and we defined a mission. And in regards to that, we want to strengthen the integration and cooperation between associations of women in energy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Those are trained or about to be trained. That's really important for us. And we want to promote exchange, and we want to promote experiences, resources, so that we can push an energy transition that is just, that has a gender focus. I am going to share about energy, our vision. And we want to create a regional network for reference that will allow through the collaboration between associations and between others as associations. We want to have strategic partners involved. We want to have the private sector, the academia, multilateral areas, and we want to have an inclusive and equal and sustainable effort.
And finally, just to conclude, we have defined the 5 major objectives that are mostly to increase the presence and representation internationally, to create dialogue spaces between association and different governments in the region, to provide formation, training to strengthen our capacities and to create these connections, and those that have already been built can grow, to promote the employment of the women in the sector and to eliminate the gaps, and finally to promote the female leadership and to empower those women that are already working there. They can actually start leadership jobs. Perfect. And now we are going to have a very symbolic moment, but before that I'm going to get off the script and thank somebody very specifically. I deeply believe that institutions are the basis of everything. The things do not happen if there is no individual will of person. What happened in Chile is really related that Andres Rebolledo, the Executive Secretary of ALAD here in Chile. Please, Andres, come here, because I want to tell you that, yes, please overcome your shyness. In 2016, he was the Minister of Energy in Chile, and I had the privilege to be the witness of him getting into ministry and saying what's happening with the gender issues. And he also sent Marcela Solantay, who is also here, and she's been a great driving power to create this work table, and it was extremely successful, especially in the private sector, and it's still working really well with women in energy. The institutions were able to maintain this because they had the clear objectives and the dialogue. But if it weren't for Andres, and this wouldn't have happened because of that. And also when Gloria said that 2 years ago we had OLADE and we created a mandate regarding gender, and at that time Andres was already Executive Secretary of OLADE, so I wanted to provide this homage to him and to thank him personally. Please, a round of applause for Andres and his hard work.
Muchas gracias a todas, así concluye entonces.
Thank you very much. Also, this is the conclusion of this panel full of ideas, experiences, and commitments. But we know that the energetic transition is going to be fair and more equitative. And now we are inviting you to networking. And those of you who are going to continue at 4 p.m., we have next panel, which is regional energetic perspectives.
Please follow up. Please follow up. Please follow up.